Hey everybody, welcome back to Chasing Chantha Visuk, episode 2. We are ready to go. I dropped my son off at school. I did my morning walk. Funny thing, I was getting ready to write an episode, and I was reaching for one of my energy drinks. And instead, I grabbed a beer, unknowingly, opened it up, and hell, why not? I mean, it's already open. I don't want to waste it. So episode 2, we are in Washington D.C. So right around this time, I'm still used to the freedom of running around in the village. Unfortunately, we are now living in a 3 bedroom apartment. Actually, it was a 2 bedroom, I believe, even smaller. Yeah, because we slept on the couch. It was a pulled-out couch. That's right. It was a 2 bedroom apartment, actually, on the upper floors of Washington D.C. and still energetic. So I tend to run around a lot because as a kid you discover that your strides are a lot shorter, your legs are shorter. So in order to get to a certain place to keep up with the adults, you would run. And so everywhere I went, I ran. Like Forrest Gump said, everywhere I went, I was running. But yeah, so I did a lot of running, and unfortunately, we lived on the upper floors. And I know if my wife is listening right now, she's probably looking at me funny because I would tell my son to stop running in the apartment all the time. And this is why. This is why exactly. Uh, so I'm running around, and my feet weren't very light because I'm used to pounding the pavement. No, not the pavement, pounding the dirt as I'm running. And we'd have neighbors downstairs who would constantly take their broomsticks and bang the floors, and so that would let us know that I was a bit loud. And it got to the point where I would keep doing, I would keep running. They would tell me to stop running, and I would for a couple seconds, and then I would do it again. And it got to the point where I was getting spanked for it, and I learned very quickly that if you get spanked, they meant it. And so I calmed down on it, and in fact, to this day, I mean, I weigh right now, last I checked, about 198 pounds. I can run in this apartment, and you probably couldn't hear me. Like, I would sneak up on my wife all the time just because it was funny. And she has, like, the heart rate of a hummingbird. And so I learned very quickly to adapt to that style. And yeah, I wouldn't say I was treated badly, but I was definitely the odd man out as far as kids are concerned. My aunt and uncle had 2 other boys, and they were choir boys, to be honest with you. I mean, they were proper, you know, I wouldn't say they were perfect, let's be honest. But they put on an air. They put on an air about it. And you're going to find out later on down the line that putting on a face is very important in Asian culture. And this is what was going on. They were putting on a face, even though we lived with them. They were putting on this perfection face, and I I let's be honest, I was a redneck, considering, considering how I was raised. I was raised free, go out there, do whatever, come home eventually, and so that's how I was. I guess I would be considered a wild child, and so I didn't quite get what they were trying to mold me into. To this day, I still don't get it. And I was what, maybe 3, 4 years old, 84, 3 years old, and so I was loud because that's what I was used to. I was probably very obnoxious, as I mentioned in the last episode. I was kind of a dick, and I just didn't understand why I would constantly be told to do this, do that, sit this way, speak this way, use certain hand gestures. There's a lot of hand gestures involved. Laotians are pretty much the Italians of Asians. And so I would just sit there, and I would just, at certain points, I would just give up. I wouldn't move at all, and I would just sit there. And so, things were rough back then. And I remember a story my father told my stepmother a couple months ago when we last went to go visit, because they saw how lively Alex was running around in the house, and he was having a good time. And my father said to my stepmother that Alex reminded him of me as a kid, and he told me a story about how I was running around doing my thing, and either my aunt or my uncle, one of the two, yelled at him, as if, why don't you control your kid? In fact, take him to the park. Take your kid to the park just so I can take a nap. And he he said how unwelcomed he felt at that moment, because like we're supposed to be family, we're supposed to look out for each other, and it's like I need to take a nap, get him out of here, you know, and so he felt then and there that we had to go, like there's no way he was going to raise his family in these conditions, because my father from a poor family, my mother's side is a lot more well off, and my dad was more of a farmer, so he was all about family, taking care of each other with whatever you had. And so we finally moved out, and then roughly right around 1986, we moved to to good old Rochester, New York. So if you can imagine, Laos and Thailand are tropical areas, generally roughly around 80 to 90, if not 100 degrees every day. And then moving to southern U.S., so the weather's kind of nice, kind of the same. And then suddenly finding yourself in Rochester, New York, in the middle of winter, living in I'll be honest with you, the house was haunted. Living in a haunted house on Arch Street in Rochester, New York, with myself, with my great aunt and uncle, and their 5 children. And yeah, I mean it was a lot better off because these guys were more my speed. I got along with these guys. I still get along with them to this day. So if you could just imagine myself, and then suddenly there's like 5 other versions of me just running around, just causing havoc, and we got into it because when you have 5 kids and not very much as far as who gets food, who gets the most food, or who gets the TV remote. At the time, actually, no. At the time, it was a box with a cable attached to the TV, and you would slide the channels back and forth that way. And so it was always a fight to see who would get to that first. And we fought a lot. And let me tell you, that was probably how I learned to manage my pain. Because there is a rule. There's a very loud adult rule that when you see a kid do something stupid, and it's incredibly stupid, you tell them once, don't do it, or you'll get hurt. And then the kid does it anyway. And then you look at him one more time, and he goes, if you get hurt, I will hurt you some more. And so we would get into fights, like just huge knockdown, drag out, like hair pulling, punching, and it was real fights. Like we were just wailing on each other. And then from the other side of the room, you would just hear one of the parents go, if you guys get hurt, I'm going to hurt you more. Like, I don't want to hear any crying in there. And so we would like take it. Like, again, just, I mean, we've drawn blood, and none of us would make a single sound. Like, it didn't matter how much it hurt. If one of us fell on the floor and even made a face like we were about to cry, the other ones would just surround them and be like, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, you're good, you're good, you're good, because nobody wanted to get in trouble. And even though we were fighting each other, we didn't want to see the other ones get hurt either. And so we would like shelter each other that way. And Yeah, so that was Rochester life, and then the impact of moving from another country to this country finally hit my parents. I remember it now, like the struggles they had to go through. So in the morning, they would go to school. They would go to, I guess it would be a secondary school, to get their GED. So my mom and my dad would go to school, and I would be left with the kids at home. If they went to school, I essentially would be left by myself. And this is before that was legal. It could have been illegal then. I don't know. But my parents, or their everybody, they just knew that was going to be. So I was left home alone while in a haunted house, by the way. And my parents would go to school in the morning. They would get their education and work towards getting a GED. And at night, they would go pick worms to sell to the local bait shop. And so I never really saw my parents much, except for on the weekends. And like I finally remember that now, just thinking about it. Like they would go, I don't know how long school is, 6 to 8 hours, and then after that they would come home. They would feed me, and feed the whole group, and then roughly around 6 to 7 o'clock at night they would get ready to go pick worms, and they would get their little battery pack and their head torches, and they would have a solution of like water, and I believe it's dish soap, because if you pour water and dish soap on the ground, it irritates the worms and they come out. And they would do that every night, for I don't know how long. And then finally, my dad shows up with this maroon Volkswagen Rabbit, and it was the first purchase, first major purchase they had, and he was so proud of it. And it was maroon all around, like the interior was maroon as well, and it was a stick shift, and he was so proud of it that he took us out for a ride. And I don't know if the clutch was shifting or slipping or anything, but I remember it not being very fast. And so that was their first major purchase. And then finally, doing the same thing, going to school and then going to work and then picking worms. My parents also worked in between picking worms and going to school as well. And, they finally got us a place. We finally moved out to Conkey Avenue. And if you guys are in Rochester and you're listening to this, Conkey Avenue is not a nice place to be, especially if you're a kid. And don't get me wrong, like it's probably worse. In fact, I know it's worse now. But back then it was bad. This is roughly 86, 87, I want to say. And we finally got a place. Wasn't haunted. And I finally went to school. To good old school number 8. And I started kindergarten. So this would be 86. Yeah, I started kindergarten. And my kindergarten teacher was Mrs. Sweeney. I still remember that. She passed away, I believe, when I was in either first grade or second grade from cancer. But she was the first person to teach me how to write my name. And I would always go turn in my work. I wouldn't write my name. I mean, have you seen my name? That thing is like ridiculously long. But I wouldn't write my name. I couldn't write, I couldn't write Virafon, I couldn't write Noi, I couldn't write anything like that. And then one day I guess she had gotten fed up with me not writing my name, and she came with a piece of paper. She wrote my name down, Virafon, Chantavisuk, and then she had me trace it with a crayon. And so I traced, VIRA, and I did that. And then she would just have every day. She would just have me tracing my name until I finally started writing my name. And obviously, I never forgot, because she was the first person that actually took interest in teaching me how to write my name. Ooh, fun fact about kindergarten. So for my first day in kindergarten, I didn't speak with anybody. I didn't speak to anybody because I didn't know these people. Like, well, I'm supposed to interact with these people. I don't know you guys. And it got to the point where I was tested, and almost to the fact that I was about to be put into special ed because they thought I couldn't speak, or I was slow or something like that. And so my dad goes in, speaks with the teacher, and you know he asked me, like, why aren't you speaking to people? And I go, I don't want to speak with anybody. And so he looks at them. And my dad doesn't speak very good English at all. And he'll tell you this. I have a funny story about that as well. But he looks at the teacher and he goes, he can speak. He just doesn't want to talk to you. And so you got to laugh out of that. And so I got out of special ed. And kindergarten was pretty easy, I guess, if you think about it. I mean, all you did was play and listen to stories, and we still had nap time then. I didn't really nap. Oh, kindergarten was also it was also where I met my first crush. Oh God, what is her name now? Brenda. Her name was Brenda. I won't say last names because she's probably still around. But those who went to kindergarten with me can probably figure out who that is because there was only one Brenda. And yeah, that was my first crush. Like, it was just one of those things where I would just stare at her, real creepily. You imagine, just a little big-headed 5-year-old kid with big round eyes, just staring at you for no reason. Not even speaking either, because again, I didn't speak in kindergarten. And yeah, it's kind of creepy now thinking about it. It looked like a lemur or something. Yeah, kindergarten was my first crush, and also where I encountered my first, I guess, first encounter with racism, I suppose. Thinking about it now, I mean, it's a laugh, but thinking about it then, I completely didn't understand what this was all about, and I felt very uncomfortable with it. It was I was being picked up by my dad, and we were walking home, and all of a sudden, like, I start hearing this girl's voice just ching chong, and what? I'm wondering where this is coming from, and I hear it again, ching chong, and I look up, and there's this girl, like, sitting on her balcony, just looking right at us, right at me. And she does it again, ching chong, and I was just confused because I know who this girl. I know this girl. Her name is Ruth. We were just in the same class together. Like, literally, we just got let out of class, and here she goes, like, just calling out on us. And my dad looks at me, and he rubs my head like I do to Alex now whenever he looks nervous. And he rubs my head, and he just puts his hand on my back, like my upper back where my shoulders are, and he doesn't say a word. And I got it. My father and I had this very close communications where we don't have to say anything to each other. We just get it. And yeah, that bothers me now that I'm talking about it. I told you earlier that I laughed about it, but now that the words are actually coming out of my mouth, like, my father has been in wars. He was in the Vietnam War, and so Americans were over there, and they were fighting the Vietnamese. They couldn't differentiate between Laos and Vietnam, and so I'm sure he was called a chink. He was called a gook, I mean, hell, what's his face? Arizona there, still says gook, but he gets a pass. But, like, I'm sure he understood what that was, even though he, barely spoke a lick of English. when he heard that, I'm sure he knew what it meant. And so for him to see me with that confusion on my face, I don't even know what was going through his head. And but he knew to rest assure to assure me that everything was going to be okay. And I never questioned it. And I just found that very difficult to understand as a kid. And you know, wherever Ruth is, I'm pretty sure I'm doing better than her. So we're gonna move on. Other than that, elementary school was kind of a blur. Like, I did all the Asian things. I played instruments. I played a trumpet. I played a clarinet because the girl I really liked was also playing a clarinet, and I just wanted to sit next to her. And I was awful in the clarinet to the point that I never actually played the clarinet. I just did the finger motions. And fifth grade came about, and that's when I discovered competition. Because fifth grade in school number 8, there were only 2 classes. There was Mr. Camilio's class, and then there was Miss O'Brien's class. And that's when we, I guess, drew battle lines. This was gang warfare. You were either Team Camilio or you were Team O'Brien, and field day was the day of execution. Like, we didn't care about grades. We didn't care who had the better grades, who was smarter, who was the better reader. It was all about athletics, field day. And there was 2 of them. There was field day in the fall, and then there was the definitive field day in the spring. And ribbons mattered. Nobody wanted a red third place ribbon. Nobody wanted the blue, or I'm sorry, the yellow second place ribbon. It was about the blue ribbon. And we trained. Like, I'm sure Mr. Camilo and Miss O'Brien had like a little, tit for tat. Da da da. My class is better than yours. No, no, no. Students trained for these things. Like, I carried an egg on a damn spoon like my life depended on it. And if that egg fell, I brought shame to my family. I brought shame to my class. I was going to execute myself right then and there. And so, field day came, and I was a sprinter. I was the egg carrier, eggs in a spoon, and I believe I was also the log jumper. And so I worked out, like I worked my legs out. I was doing squats, and I was 10 years old at this time, and we were training like athletes. Like, we got together after school, and we were just okay, this is your event, this is my event, let's go. And so we would always meet at the park on Avenue D, and yeah, it got serious. Like we wouldn't even, the couple weeks leading up to field day, we wouldn't talk to each other. Like, the other class was the other class. They were on the other side of the moon as far as we were we were considered. And so field day finally came, and again, like I said, I was gonna carry that egg to the finish line and back as if my family, my ancestors depended on it. And so I did it. Boom. First place. Blue ribbon. Suck it, Mr. Camilio's class. And then long jump came about. Guess who got that? This guy. It's blue ribbon. Again. Suck it. And then finally, it was tied. Now this is a movie couldn't have written it any better. It was tied. And then we finally got to the marathon event. 1 boy, 1 girl, each class. We'd have to run around the block, and the first to finish would win. And we ran out of top tier athletes, I guess you would say. And so we chose, I believe his name was John. John was one of them, and I forget the girl's name. I believe it was Madeline. Yeah, John and Madeline. Madeline was athletic. John was not. And Mr. Camilio's class had Kenneth, who was extremely athletic, and Suzanne, who was also extremely athletic. And they chose them last because I knew, like, these guys were sprinters. And so we were like, oh my God, no, we're going to lose, we're going to lose. And we held our heads in our hands. We didn't want to see this race at all. Finally, whistle starts, they take off. Kenneth, Suzanne running, gone, shot out of a cannon, gone. I didn't understand the mechanics of a marathon race at that time. I just knew they were fast and they were gone. They were already around the corner by the time John and Madeline had even gotten out of the gates. And so, again, the story of the tortoise and the hare. Like, they sprinted out and they were gone. But because they sprinted, coming around the corner the other way, Kenneth had actually dropped. Like, he was so exhausted, he had actually dropped. And Suzanne had barely made it across the line, and she actually vomited. But here came John and Madeline, like slowly but surely. Boom, both of them crossed the finish line, and we did what every single college crowd does when you are the underdog and you finally get that win. We ran to them, and then we just surrounded them, and we were just elated. This was it. This is how we ended our elementary careers. Not with straight A's, not with like a cap and gown. No, the big blue ribbon. We had finally defeated our rivals, and we would never let them live that down. And because we all knew each other, like to this day, I still talk to the twins who were John and David, who were in Mr. Camilio's class. I would still talk with them and be like, "Yeah, we kicked your ass." I guess I still have that blue ribbon, by the way. And so, yeah, we still have that laughter. And yes, I do still have that blue ribbon, also at my dad's house, probably next to Barry, as far as I know. And then middle school comes around, and all of us, I believe, yeah, all of us decided we wanted to go to Charlotte Middle School. And again, gang warfare. Once you enter middle school, you're given a house, a specific house. So you were house A, house B, and house C. I was chosen for house C. And so what was weird about house C was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They had this new experimental program. You would have the same teachers from grade 6 to grade 8. And so they would just follow you through, and then they would teach you different curriculums. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. What I didn't like was the fact that Charlotte Middle School used to be Charlotte High School. And so the school was a lot bigger. And I remember being so tired just going up and down those stairs every day. I'm like, my legs aren't supposed to go up this many flights of steps. Like, what the hell, man? Who designed this? And middle school was kind of good, I guess. I mean, there wasn't really anything that awesome in middle school. And so, fast forward, 8th grade, we were told we had to choose high schools. This is like, how getting you ready for college. You had to write down what high schools you wanted to go to. And you had to write your top 3. And so, my first choice was Franklin High School. Basically because Franklin High School, for the fact that it was close to my house at the time. And I believe you only needed 18.9 credits to graduate from Franklin High School, which was very, very small. And then I wanted to go to East High School because I knew a lot of people who went to East High School, and because I wanted to be known as an East Oriental. Yeah, that wasn't offensive back then. And their mascot was a tiger. Figure that out. Anyways, and then my third choice was Edison Tech because it sounded really cool. Except it was also the hardest high school to graduate from. And guess which one I got? So I got in an Edison Technical and Occupational Learning Center. Yay, us. It used to be a boys' school. And I was now an Edison Tech inventor. And our mascot was a lightning bolt, and our colors were gray and maroon. Gross. And I got school spirit because, again, that competitiveness finally kicked in, and I wanted to play sports. And so the first sport that was available was football, and I didn't get football because apparently you're supposed to register in August, and I knew nothing about that, so I was already out of that. But I did get a chance to play baseball that year, and I did make varsity. I was a pitcher. My number was 16 because at the time in 1995, the hottest pitcher in baseball was Hideo Nomo, number 16. So you give the one Asian guy you got on your team the number 16. Why not? I also threw like him too. It was kind of cool. I had that weird, wonky wind up. Yeah, I emulated that. That was awesome. I could also throw at 55 miles per hour. Not very fast if you're trying to throw baseball, but I'll take that as a win. And I was doing pretty good there, actually. I wasn't the captain, but I made varsity. There was also soccer, which, here's the weird part about soccer is Edison Tech didn't have a soccer team, but the East Orientals did. And so there was this weird way of, I was still able to play soccer, but I was playing soccer for East High School instead of for Edison. So I would be pitching against East High School, wearing the Edison Tech Inventors outfit, and then the next 2 days I would be rocking the East High School soccer jersey. And I would be like, hey, we could totally beat these guys. Like, East High School sucks. And then next day I'd be like, hey, East High School, yeah, kick the ball. And that was very odd. So 10th grade comes around. I finally got to play more sports. And so 10th grade is, 1996. I finally got to play the sports that I wanted to play. I became a quarterback. I became a pitcher. And I didn't play soccer that year. I kind of wanted to play volleyball, but every Vietnamese person in Rochester also wanted to play volleyball, and they were so much better than me. In fact, I believe they were all related. They were all trans. Not Wins. No. Wins didn't play volleyball. They were too good for that. But trans. Them trans can spike a ball. And I didn't make the volleyball team. But 10th grade, I got this thing called America Online, and it was very, very, it was a bad drug. And this is during dial-up, and so we would get to we would dial, you would hear that, and then welcome, you've got mail, and that was like a hit. You know how you get a text message nowadays, and you instantly had to grab your phone and take a look at the text message? When you said, welcome, you've got mail, boom, you flew over to the mailbox, you clicked on it, and it was just garbage. But chat rooms on America Online were fantastic. And I found this chat room called Wrestling Roleplay. And so basically you would join a wrestling roleplay group, and you would write promos. You would write skits. So you would write such and such wrestler enters the room. He's wearing leather boots, jean pants. You would write this whole script and make it as elaborate as possible. And then you would write the promo. This wrestler would say this and this and this. And at the end of the week, whoever was running the roleplay group would write the card. He would write the matches. He would write, such and such hits somebody over the head with a chair, pin 1, 2, 3. We got a new champion, sort of thing. And at the beginning of the week, whoever wrote the best promos would win. And so every week we would write a promo throughout the whole week. We would just cut promos on each other throughout the week. And whoever wrote the best by the end of it, cumulatively would win the match. And it got my creative juices flowing. However, you want to say it, it got me really, really into writing, and I got really, really good at it. Like I was writing like journals and small little stories during English class, and I met this kid called I forget his last name, but his name was Joe. I'm just gonna call him Madison because that was his wrestling name. And he gets a hold of me, and he goes, "Hey man, there's this guy who is doing actual wrestling shows or taped wrestling shows, and he's paying people if you want to get into this." And I go, hell yeah, man! Because I mean, as a kid, you watch wrestling, and it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be like Bret the Hitman Hart. I want to do the sharpshooter, and I want to come off the top turnbuckle and all these things. So I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. Yeah, set me up. And so he gives me an address, and it's an address for an insurance company in Webster, New York. And I'm like, okay, this guy's paying, so whatever. So I show up to this insurance company, which I won't mention because it's still in business, and it's just offices. Like I go in, there's a desk, there's a secretary, and she's like, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I said, "Hey, I'm here for wrestling?" Question mark. And she looks at me, without any emotion whatsoever. She goes, "Oh, yep, right down the door, right down this way, and take a left at the door, and I'll let them know you're here." Oh, okay. Still, I mean, still very cautious here. And this gentleman steps out. I'm gonna call him Larry, but that's not his real name. And Larry shakes my hand and goes, "So you're here to do the wrestling filming?" And I say, "Yeah, yes I am. Yes I am here for wrestling filming." And he goes, "Well, what can you do?" And I said, "I can sell very well. I mean, I can make it look like I got hurt selling. It just means you make things look believable." And he goes, "Oh, that's good. That's good. We need somebody that can do that." And he takes me in to the back, and he opens the door, and there's two gym mats on the floor. And then there's wall, probably, I don't know, 8 by 8, if at best. And there's a bunch of guys just standing around, some of them shirtless. And he goes, "We're going to be wrestling on mats. You take the falls here. There's no ring yet." And again, I'm like, okay. So he just goes, "All right, you and you just go." And they would just start wrestling. And there was no training at all. They would just do backyard moves on the wrestling mat. There would guys just be like bouncing off the wall. And he goes, "All right, it's your turn." And so I do a couple moves with the guys, and we talked each other through it. And then he goes, "Yeah, I like you. You should come back next week. We'll do the actual filming." And all right, sure. So I come back. I come back, and we filmed a match. It was me and this other kid who was a wrestler, and he was doing wrestling in high school. And this kid was jacked, like shredded, probably like 4% body fat. And here's me at 135 because that's what I weighed at the time. And we put on a match. We talked through it. We went over it beforehand, and then we did our match. And Larry shakes our hands and he goes, "That was a good take. We're gonna film it, and then we're going to distribute it." And so, not film it and distribute, but edit and then distribute. And I didn't really hear anything for a while. Probably like 2 or 3 weeks. And finally, I get a phone call at my house. Actually, my dad picks up the phone, and he says, "There's this guy from the insurance company who wants to talk to you." And, oh, okay. Hello? Yeah, Noi? Yeah? He goes, yeah, we got some people who are interested in getting together with you and starting a promotion. Are you interested? Uh, sure. So he tells me to come down to the old post office on I forget what street it's on, but it's the old post office in Rochester that's next to the train station, and they've got a ring now. Finally, they got an actual ring, and he actually hands me $100 bill. He goes, "This is yours for the video." I'm like, "Oh, sweet! I got paid." I know most people who wrestle now who never get paid except for like Gatorade and pizza, and so I actually got paid for my first video. And he tells me that he got an email from a guy in Germany who was interested in coming to Rochester to wrestle some of the guys that were on the video. And he said he would bring his own gear. And he was especially interested in wrestling me. And I said that's a hard no. so so that was as far as that conversation got. And yeah, so we finally got a ring, and I got my name, which wasn't Alex Mikado at the time. My first wrestling name was oh god, what was it? Kato Mushimitsu was my first wrestling name. And just like my real name, no one can pronounce it, so I changed it to Johnny Cisco. And Johnny Cisco was awful. Not that Alex Mikado was any better, but Johnny Cisco was just basically a huge rock ripoff, but poorly ripped off. And then I finally got out of that because high school was over. So I did this for a while. Actually, I did it for my entire high school, and I finally got out of that because high school was coming to an end. And by grade 12, my senior year, they had developed this program called Regents in high school. And Regents was a failure, an absolute failure, in that you could fail the entire year. You could not even show up to school the entire year. But as long as you got a D in your finals, you passed. And boy, did that come back to bite them in the ass because a lot of kids took that route. Like senior skip day was every day, and I especially took senior year very laxed. I played every single sport that was available. Like I had that athletic drive. I had that motivation to be the best. Except I had no school spirit whatsoever. And it was their fault for announcing, hey, pep rally's coming up. We need all the athletes to be there. But if you didn't want to be there, you can go home so long as your attendance was taken. You would be given credit for that whole day. So I would show up for first period, which was study hall. Don't matter because I got my attendance taken. And then I told everybody I was leaving. And one of my baseball teammates says, "Hey, no, you gonna go pep rally?" "No, man, no, I'm not going." "Why would I go? They said I could leave." "But you're the captain of the baseball team." And so I just left. And then a lot of times, my senior year, I had already gotten pretty covered as far as credits are concerned. So I had maybe 3 study halls, and I would sleep during global studies. I was very good at like global studies and geography and history like that. So I would just take that time to sleep. And I would sleep in the front of the class just so I can get closer to the door to leave during when the bell rang. But I managed to get all my grades. I got out of there. And then I finally said to my classmates, "Hey, high school's over. Not for nothing, but I have seen you guys during elementary. I have seen you guys in middle school. And I have seen you guys during high school. I have seen you guys for pretty much my entire life. We've hung out together. We've had sleepovers. We've, gone to the mall. We've fought each other. We've eaten together. I'm going to go as far away from you guys as I possibly can. And that's when I decided to go to California. All by my lonesome. It was one of those most impulsive ideas that I got, and my friends and family will know that I do that a lot. I get an idea in my head, and I just go and see where it goes. And so that was my schooling career in Rochester. I wouldn't say I became a pro wrestler. That would be a disservice to my pro wrestling friends. But I did get paid, so technically I am a professional. Ooh, excuse me. That was bad, huh? So I got out. I said bye to my friends. I said bye to my dad. My mom and dad had gotten a divorce by then. I won't go through that because none of my business, and they're actually better off. So I'm gonna stop it right here. I think we had a good time. Ooh, next week I will. Next week's gonna be a special episode. It's not gonna be chronological, but I think it's important enough that I speak about it. The end of the month, this September, being Suicide Prevention Month, and I have a story to tell, and I think it will help a lot of people. So next week, I'm actually going to release on Thursday because I have a training to do Friday. But thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next week. All right, see ya.